Okay, so hi everyone, super excited to be here. I was giving a talk at this meetup last year, and the audience was amazing. So I hope today you will also be amazing. My name is Nicola Corti. I work on the React team at Meta. I'm based in London. My background is Android engineer. So when I go to DroidCon conferences, people hate me because I'm doing React Native. But actually, yeah, fun fact, there is a lot of like Android internals to deal with when you work on the framework. And I find this area like extremely interesting. There is so much to learn. So I've been doing Android for like 10 years now, and I'm in the React team since 3 years. And yeah, you can find me online as Cortinico. So please feel free to connect with me if you have questions, follow-ups, or you want to hear, I don't know, the React team opinion on why we are not fixing your bugs. I'll be more than happy to support you. If you've been dealing with the issue tracker for React Native, you probably know me as the person that asks you to provide a reproducer to any of your bug. So yeah, that's what I do. But today's talk is called useFrameworks. And I don't know if you saw ReactConf from this year. It's like our biggest conference organized by the React team. We give a lot of announcements. And during the keynote, the day 2 keynote, which is the React Native keynote, we used a quote. And I want to start from this quote because the quote is, you either use a framework or you're building your own framework. So I'm just curious to understand, like, how many of you are React Native developers or like work on a React Native app daily? Amazing. And how many of you are actually using Expo? Cool. So I believe there is someone that is using React Native without Expo in this room, right? Yes, because like the sum of the hands needs to be the same. So today we're going to talk about it. And so this quote that I presented comes from our like multi-year experience of integrating React Native at scale within the Meta ecosystem and also making it available to open source users. So what is the problem? The problem is that, like, as I said, I'm doing Android for 10 years, and building like a 5-star Android application is a huge pain. Like, it is really complicated. It's not just learning how to do Android, but there is a lot of things that you need to know. And like, there are constant requests from the user that you need to keep up. Then you need to follow up with all the requirements from the Google Play Store and so on. It really gets complicated to build a successful app in 2024. So what are some of those needs? Things like supports for routing, supports for deep links, as I said, publishing to the Play Store, taking screenshots, and so on. Like, there are problems that not just React Native developers have to solve. Like, every Android engineers out there have to solve those problems. So in the React Native space, we call a tool that helps you solve all of those problems a React Native framework. So the folks that previously raised their hand because they're using Expo, well, already know a React Native framework. So now, again, if you use Expo, you can leave, the talk is over, you're already doing the right thing. But as I said, there are other people out there that are not using Expo. So I want to explain what is this, more in depth, what is this concept of React Native framework and what are the implications for the ecosystem. So today I want to talk about, first, what is a React Native framework, like give the exact definition, how it's going to affect you, either if you're already using one or not, and why, at the end of the day, we decided to introduce this concept and make it more formal for the entire ecosystem. So let's start from the what. What are React Native frameworks? So we recently updated the reactnative.dev website, and at the beginning, we define what is a React Native framework. A toolbox with all the necessary API to let you build production-ready apps. That's the key. Production-ready apps. It's not just a hello word. It's a set of tools that lets you hit the Play Store and build like production-ready applications. So this concept is really similar to the same concept you have on web. For example, if you have been doing React for web, you probably know frameworks like Next or Remix. There are like a collection of tools that lets you bring React code and bring it to production for your users. So let's deep dive a little bit on what we believe are the responsibility of the core of React Native and what instead lives inside the responsibility of the frameworks. So at the core of React Native, like what is our main goal? Our main goal is to provide abstractions that let you write native components and native modules. So you can get your React code and render UI on screen, or get access to the underlying platform and running Kotlin and Java code, for example, on Android. React Native is also responsible of runtime and initialization, so making sure that the app can start, it doesn't take seconds to start, and so on. Then the core of React Native is also responsible of integrating with a bundler, offering tool to help you debug your application with JavaScript and give you valuable error and crash reporting. We also handle the integration with the JavaScript engines, particularly with Hermes, our in-house JavaScript engine, and with build tools like Gradle and CocoaPods. And finally, we are also responsible of defining what is the skeleton of third-party libraries, like how libraries should look like in the React Native ecosystem. Those are all responsibility that are under the umbrella of React Native core, we call it like that. Then on top of that, there is the frameworks layer. So like Expo and other players. What are they responsible for? First, they're responsible for the concept so-called auto-linking, which is the beauty that on React Native you can just yarn add the library and that will magically just start working. Then a framework will help you with React Native upgrades, so like keeping up to date with the latest version of React Native. And we'll give you support for routing and navigation, handling deep links, and like just having a more complicated application rather than just a simple hello world. Then frameworks can help you publishing to the stores and also can run managed builds. For example, you can use their own cloud to help you simplify your native build code. Then they can help you with over-the-air updates, and also they're really helpful to like get started super quickly with tools like project scaffolding with a simple command can just like create your application in a second. So like we've been discussing a lot about those boxes, who's responsible of what the React team should focus on, what frameworks should focus on. And as I said at the beginning, either you're using a framework or you're building your own. So what we came up with the conclusion that basically if you're using React Native in any form, either you're using Expo or you're using what we call a bespoke framework. So for us at Meta, we actually have our own bespoke framework. For example, at Meta, we don't use Gradle to build Android apps. We use another build tool, which is called Buck. It is actually open source. But we have build integrations for Buck and React Native. And those are part of our own React Native framework at Meta that doesn't have a name, but it's basically the way our React Native is experienced inside Meta. And you might have something similar in your organization, especially if you work in a bigger company and you try to integrate, I don't know, maybe your company is using Bazel to build applications and you need to integrate React Native inside it. So you end up creating your own set of tools that help you with React Native development. So again, there is nothing wrong with having a bespoke framework, but you need to understand what you're leaving on the table. Like what are the trade-offs of basically reinventing the wheel to some extent? Like you're solving problems that someone else already solved for you. So that's why we also introduced this concept of recommended React Native frameworks. Frameworks that we know the community loves to use. We know they are like AAA tools that people really like, and we just tend to recommend to our users to use. So we recently also updated the front page of the React Native website. And if you scroll down a little, you will see get a head start with a framework. So we really want users to experience React Native through a framework because we believe that is the best way for people to just experience React Native. Like you should not try to sort of create paper cuts and build custom tooling on top of bare-bone React Native because it will just be like a painful experience. So that's why on the front page, we do recommend users to use Expo, which today happens to be the only recommended framework, but we are hoping to have way more frameworks in the future like we do have on web. So Just to briefly talk, what are the requirements to become a React Native frameworks? Who knows, maybe someone in the room wants to create one. So we have some do's and some don'ts. And again, focus on the backs, focus on user experience, abstract complexity, and so on, and be open source. But I want to briefly touch on the don'ts because, like, literally, here is what I think is, like, you really get the point of why we are doing this kind of work, which is fork React Native and fork APIs. So don't fork React Native and don't fork core APIs. So we noticed that there are a lot of initiatives in the ecosystem, and sometimes it's hard for us to sort of just sort of explain what is the correct direction for libraries to take, for developers to take. And we really want to have a conversation with frameworks and make sure that if they are recommended, they're not steering the community away into a silo where you say like, okay, I use Expo and now like I'm blocked. I can't get away from Expo. I can't interact with other frameworks if I want to. So literally this all work that we're doing now is to sort of foster a more healthy ecosystem where like more frameworks can come in and play and like create new APIs and be integrated with others and just be great citizens with each other. So I talked about like what is the framework, and now let's talk about how frameworks are going to affect you. And that's a little bit different whether you are like an app developer or a library developer. So if you're an app developer and you're already using Expo, as some of you said, well, basically you're done. Like you're using the recommended solution, you're good to go. Like there is nothing else for you to worry about, no? Kind of like, that's true, like nothing will change for you. But if you are using a bespoke framework, yeah, I mean, there are implications to this change. So most of the bespoke frameworks that we know, that we spoke with partners and big companies that are creating them, we know are based on the community CLI and the community template. So when we implemented this React Frameworks RFC, we literally tried to make it in a way to minimize the disruption for people that are not already using a recommended framework like Expo. And again, if you're not using Expo, they do have an amazing page on their website that explains how to migrate to Expo if you want to, but you might have your own reason why you can't use Expo, and we don't want to force you to just use Expo because now it's the only recommended solution. You should be able to not use it if you don't want to. So there are some changes for those users that are not using Expo. So the first big change is related to the community CLI. So the community CLI is basically what you invoke when you run command like npx React Native init. And yeah, like here it gets a little bit complicated because when you run npx React Native init, you're actually running React Native from the React Native core package, but the init command is coming from the CLI. So our goal is we want developers approaching React Native to have the best tool ever when they try like React Native for the first time in their life, or maybe they tried React Native like 4 years ago and it was crap for them and they want to give it another try. So what is the best way for them to sort of experience React Native? And a lot of people would just start using the init command, and the init command lets you use the community CLI and the community template, which is not a recommended framework. So we sort of had to tweak the init command a bit. So if I run the init command on console, for people that never did it, let's see what it does. So it practically just prints this nice React logo in ASCII art, but then it starts like downloading a template. If you see it down here. And it copies the template, it processes the template and so on, and creates a new project for you. So we have this like couple of like community CLI, a community template, which is really crucial in a sense because a lot of people that are like first not using Expo are using those tools. And also like if you create your own bespoke framework, you will start from this. Like this is the most bare bone React Native experience you can get out there. So we know that those tools are like super important, and we can't just like wake up one day and tell people like, hey, use a recommended framework. Forget about CLI and template. Let's kill them. Just use Expo, and you have no other alternative. So we had to retain those tools in some form. So again, we have this combo template plus community CLI that are really crucial. We don't want to disrupt them, but at the same time, we want users to sort of get the best experience out there, which we believe is Expo and a recommended framework whenever they start using React Native. So let's see how those two tools evolved thanks to this React Native Framework RFC. So first we have the template. The template that we saw the init command was downloading. Where is it coming from? It's coming, like, it used to come from a folder inside the npm package of React Native. So if you go in the React Native repo, inside the packages React Native template, you actually find the Kotlin files, the TypeScript files that we copy during the init command. So the fact that the template lives inside the React Native package was a little bit odd for us because the template is maintained by the community and also is not a recommended solution anymore. So we gave it a new home. So the template now lives inside the repository called React Native community/template. And it's essentially the same, like we just moved it around. So now you're saying like, okay, this guy is talking so much just because they moved the folder inside a new repo. Well, doing this thing as a cascading effect on a lot of other tools that you probably use daily, like the upgrade helper. So if you ever use the upgrade helper, this tool depends on that template and sort of runs a diff between different files. So we did those changes, but we kept those tools working. So you can still use upgrade helper and all the various tools that depend on the template today, but we moved the template outside of React Native because we believe that that is a tool that can be used if you want, but the recommendation is again to use a recommended React Native framework like Expo. The community CLI similarly also got a little bit of a facelift. The community CLI was already inside the React Native community CLI, React Native community/CLI repo. So we didn't have to move it, luckily. But we tweaked the command React Native init, the first command that people run when they experience React Native, because we want to make it clear for users what is the recommended tool out there. So that's why if you run React Native init today, you would see that there is a warning on console that tells you that the init command is effectively deprecated. Like, we don't want people to use it anymore, and we want people to use either you see here as npx React Native community CLI init. If you know what you're doing, you end up using the community tools, or use one of the alternative recommended tools, go on the getting started page. There is a documentation that explains you how to use Expo, and you will get started easily with them. And we just believe is the best way for people to experience React Native today. So again, you can keep on using init if it's your thing. Like if you need to use it, if your CI and testing, whatever depends on it, you can keep on calling it, but you will have to invoke it more like extensively with the React Native community CLI init command. So that's what changes for app developers. And again, like a lot of the changes here are related to app creation, like how you create a new project, because our goal again is to make sure that whoever approaches the React Native ecosystem gets the best tool out there. So what happens instead for library developers? Well, library developers are people that are more like hands-on with APIs and low-level tools. So here again, one question that we get often asked in the concept in the space of frameworks is, should I use framework-specific APIs like Expo modules, for example, to create my library, or should I use React Native core APIs like Turbo modules and so on? So we had a lot of discussions with Expo and folks in the ecosystem to sort of solve those questions, and we published our official guidance. And the guidance is the following. If you're looking for tools that offer better developer experience, for example, first-party support for both Kotlin and Swift, then you should probably go with like frameworks, because their goal is to provide amazing developer experience. And no, I don't want to update Xcode for whatever reason. and it killed Keynote. Oh my God. Amazing. That's corporate updates. Okay, so what I was saying, frameworks are great for developer experience. So if you're looking for like amazing developer experience API, go for that. Like the Expo modules DSL is amazing and lets you write modules that are like, you write the DSL once and it's basically exactly the same between Kotlin and Swift. But if you're looking for like wider compatibility, like you want your library to run like on Windows, on macOS, on Android, on Linux, on all possible platforms, probably you should consider using the core APIs, like the lower level APIs. So in a sense, the frameworks can offer APIs that are a little bit higher level and closer to their framework, but that comes at a cost of your library will work only for users of that framework. So if you create a library and use Expo modules, that means that only people that are using Expo can use the library. Similarly, if you want to use lower level APIs, for example, you want to write a library that is doing some crypto and is doing some C++ work, then you should consider using like the lower level APIs, the one provided by Core, like turbo modules and so on. Okay, so I talked a lot about like what are React Native frameworks, how it's going to affect you if you're a library or app author. But now let me spend a couple of seconds on why we're making those changes. And well, I sort of anticipated this already, but when React Native was first open source in 2015, it was basically an hackathon project. Like there was no React Native ecosystem. It was just like people at Meta, like at Facebook back then, created a tool that lets you bring the React code to mobile and just say like, hey, we did this, maybe it's cool. Do you want to use it? And well, people got really excited about it. And well, here we are with a React Native meetup. But like the ecosystem has grown so much. Like this year at ReactConf, we mentioned that React Native is downloaded weekly 2 million times. And only in 2023, the NPM package was downloaded like 78 million times. Like there is an entire ecosystem of people out there that are like basically like their life depends on React Native. And we just want to make it sure like it grows as healthy as possible. So I want to get a quote from Charlie, the CEO of Expo. That's from App.js from last year. And he mentioned that basically one of our biggest failure point of our ecosystem is that a lot of people ask him, should I use Expo or bear React Native without Expo? So that shouldn't be a question. That shouldn't be a question anymore. Like you should be using Expo because you're getting React Native with a lot of tools on top that lets you be extremely productive from day one. Like using bare React Native, it's an option, but it's probably, you should not go that way unless you really know what you're doing. Yeah. So like we took home those words from App.js 2023 and like we built a lot around it. And I want to share these pictures from the Core Contributor Summit. We had a 3-hour session only on this topic and it was like really intense. Like those kind of like ecosystem changes, you just don't make them by doing a pull request. Like there's a lot of speaking with partners, speaking with Microsoft, with Amazon, with Shopify, with Coinbase, with like big players that are using React Native on their daily basis. And like I really believe that this is one of the beauty of the React Native ecosystem. It's like so many different players that are using React Native in really different ways, but they are like they deeply care about the future of this framework. So that's why we came up with a RFC, which you can find on the discussion and proposal number 759. And I personally believe, and also the folks in my team, we all believe that this is going to be like a huge stepping stone for React Native as a whole. There is an entire why we are defining this now section, and I don't want to go through all of it, but I think like, again, probably the most important point is the last one, which is fostering a healthy community. Like defining what is a React Native framework now helps us define the boundaries between the tools and the players in the ecosystem. It helps us clarify what React Native Core is responsible for and what players like in the ecosystem should build on top of. So like when you go home and your project is not running on Expo and you have a lot of custom things on it, think if you're either using a framework or you're building your own. So that was all for me, talking about using frameworks, and thank you very much for listening.